All right, today I think we can talk about what questions I have. Before that, do an update. Path I'm walking took us fucking 3 hours to do yesterday. One, because it was hot, so I just kind of let them hang out in the forest for a while until they're ready to walk. But two, they were doing this annoying thing where they'd either want to ping pong to the highway, like they were all suicidal yesterday. All they wanted to do was jump into that highway. And if I was watching the highway, they were going all the way back and they were going down the steep hill rather than like over to the open pasture. Like we're gonna go back down the steep hill to a valley. And then you gotta go find your strays. And then they all beeline it to the highway. None of them wanted to just like walk into an open valley, which was crazy. And then on top of that, I got a group that just keeps on splitting off. That's why I'm backtracking right now, just to double check. For 3 days, they've split off. And yesterday was the same. Yesterday, they slept in a different spot than everyone else because I was trying to push them back and ran out of daylight. And got them all back together again yesterday for the third time. And then when we were doing that ping pong shit, they just went straight down that hill and like formed their own little group a quarter mile away. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Jesus Christ, it's so annoying. So that sucked. But yeah, finally made it here. Had an eventful 3 days. Had to get a bear that kept on coming to camp and then move it because it was dead on my doorstep. And then that whole splitting up fiasco. And so yesterday I was just a grumpy little baby boy because I had to get up at about 2:33 a.m. and go find my lost sheep and then just try to make as much progress in the morning getting them back to the others before the others kind of spread out and split it into different groups. I think we got it all good. So that was hard, but now I feel on top of the world. My full night's rest. Full night being 5.5, 6 hours. Currently it is 8:31. The sheep should be bedding down. They're over there somewhere. And while they kind of figure out where they want to hang out, they're not going to really want water today, but they're on the creek just about. But they're not going to really want water today. It's all wet. So I won't worry about positioning them so they don't wander while I go take a nap. They'll be good. Probably have to keep a shorter nap because we're so close to the road. And they'll probably do everything on their own time. Last little observation that's making me happy. This is Oregon, where I hail from. Winter weather, which is my favorite part of Oregon, is the end of September. Once when you're no longer in 90 degrees and you get, it's what summer should be at the end of September, to about April or June, or May or June. And especially end of October, November, and then February and March, when the weather is just like this. You can't see it, but it's sprinkling. Not enough to get you wet, but enough to keep you damp. Not enough to put on a rain jacket, Nice, you found a spine. Just absolutely astounding. Filthy. So yeah, those are the sheep herders' observations on I think it's a Monday or Tuesday. I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know. None of it matters. Yeah, I was having such a hard time. Last observation. I was having such a hard time with just those 3 days of just no sleep. And just yesterday I hated my job. I hated everything. Look, there's a marmot. I wanted to die. Everything was annoying. This poor dog, she got yelled at so much yesterday. She didn't deserve it. That was a cranky little bastard. Then today I'm like, oh, so happy to be alive. Other favorite thing about this weather is you get to wear your comfortable clothes. I get to wear my fun little hoodie. And just kind of get to be cozy all day. When it's hot, you're like, and as few layers as possible, and it's never enough. And the flies are out. So like you want to be naked, but also every piece of exposed skin is just getting fucking assaulted. Versus this weather, you pretty much just get to wear a blanket all day. Like, tell me this isn't sweater weather. Tell me this isn't the best weather. Let's come out. Alright, today's questions. I need to figure out who I can email, because I want to start getting the answers to these questions and just laying the groundwork. Laying the groundwork for what, Asher? Great question. And my poor girlfriend, she gets to hear this every day. And of course these are my questions today, because these are my questions every day. This is what I'm thinking about today. I'd rather be reading under a tree, but I think it's just going to be one of those fake phone research days. You don't really do research, but you just like, it's also been spending a lot of time on Facebook. Harken to the last episode. But what am I saying? Questions. Yes. Who do I need to email? How can I create these connections? I think with my farming jobs in the past, I've got at least the groundwork for like knowing landowners. So the business model we're gonna go for in Oregon, and hopefully this winter we can start it if I can have enough money. Give me all your free money and I'll go start my own business. Can't pay you back, but I'll start my own business. Sorry, doing a sheep check. You gotta listen with your ears. Number one, how the hell am I gonna get all this money? Could do another year of this. Not to be too politically doomed, but with our fascist death spiral we're in, I feel like the economy's only gonna get worse. And maybe I don't know anything, but I want to spend all my fucking money before it loses its value. And every year that I keep saving feels like I'm putting myself in a position where, like, you know, all the labor I do this year and next year, it's not like wages keep up. Like, if I buy or try to start this winter, each of my dollars will go further than if I try in 3 years. Whoa. Crazy how that doesn't hurt. That's one fear. Maybe I'm overblowing that fear, but like 25% of the world's oil is not flowing, and there's no end in sight because we're fascist and don't do anything rationally. Not like that's gonna have major implications that nobody's really talking about, huh? Inflation already kind of at an all-time high. Like, I know the official inflation numbers they release, like, are low, but every time, well, I've not been in a grocery store in about 3 or 4 months. But every time you fucking go to the store, just like the cost of living's going up. But they say inflation isn't up, but like the price of everything is up like 30% since pre-COVID or something like that. But you're saying inflation only went up 5%? No, inflation went up 30%. If everything's fucking 30% more expensive, come on. What the fuck? So yeah, question number 1. When do you start? I think a lot of this starting up, because I'll probably have about, not to get too far into my personal finances, I'm always told you need to have a lot more than you think, but let's see, we don't want to go down here, we want to go over here. But good girl, Lucky. Look at her, she's just a little follower, that's all she does. Do you start now or not? And it all depends on if I can apply for loans. So I'll have $25,000, like I said, not to get too far into personal, come November. And whenever I do my math, 25,000, and then I'm a lucky ducky, born Mormon, got tons of family. Some people got money. If I could bark up some trees, either do good old fundraising and or advantageous familial loans that aren't necessarily predatory, I imagine I need at minimum $35,000 to get started. And what that actually is going to be, and then I'm told you should always at least double it. There's no way I can get that in the next year. That's an insane amount of money. $60,000-$70,000. But then, you know, brings us up to the first issue. If I spend the next 4 years saving, it's 4 years of spending. I don't know. Part of me. And then also with all these plans is also like, go get a job where I'm making at least $2,000 a month take home to cover my cost of living. And then I know this is way under budgeting, but gotta live on a shoestring, I guess. And then having like $500 for operational costs afterwards. I think it can be done. I mean, that's effectively just gas. It's not like there's very much operational cost on top of that if I can keep my sheep on pasture. So there's question number 1. When do you actually start? How do you raise the capital? And yeah, also so eager to start. Question number 2 is born out of, actually we'll start with question number 3. All this exists in my head, sorry. Question number 3, pasture and pasture access. Business model is grazing annual ryegrass and like winter cover crop for ideally cheap and as damn close to free as I can find back home in Oregon. That keeps me at least 3 months sheep fed, probably up to 5 months depending on the cover crops and whatnot, that if people got beans and whatnot that are all mature and they don't want to till in the spring or are going to till but don't want to mow or whatever, can get me through the spring, maybe like feed my feeder lambs they're gonna go back to market, because I imagine doing grass-fed to get us to full weight, it's gonna take us about 12 to 15 months. Maybe my numbers are off. Maybe I don't know a damn thing. That's what I guess. So that means like every lambing season is also shipping season for the last year's lamb. So that means I get paid as I'm creating the next year's crop. I get paid for last year's, right? And so what that means is whenever I do my math estimates, the part-time job, and then working the sheep, part-time jobs covering operational costs, it's at about year 3 of selling lambs. Imagine year 1, I'm going to attempt, and probably every year, I'm going to just try to buy more and more ewes to get that flock growing as fast as possible. Because you're kind of running in the red, energy-wise, working a job and doing this, but also money-wise. I imagine by year 3 is kind of the first year going into that summer where I've had 2 lamb crops I've sold. Ideally have bought 2 batches of ewes. Well, 3, including the initial investment. So this is where we hung out yesterday. Wish I wasn't so damn close to the highway. It's alright, in about 2 weeks we'll be up in the forest. There's our sound check. Fucking hate being close to the highway because people got bad brakes and shit, and it's like, oh, it's a squealing lamb, it's a squealing lamb. That's a hawk, I think. Or something. Falcon. Eagle. Joe Mama. So year 3 is kind of the first year that I can put any money substantially towards either renting or leasing land or something along those likes. And which puts me at year 4 or 5. It's maybe the first time that I could even consider quitting my job that I got. So what's the question? So that's the problem I'm thinking about. And the question is pasture procurement. So if I got cool neighbors and we can make, it looks kind of fresh like today, not a yesterday fresh, huh? How do you know? I don't think anyone's back here. I was very thorough this morning, but you just gotta always check. Pasture procurement. So yeah, annual ryegrass got me on 3-4 months. Ideally. Now, this is all based on relationships with folks. And maybe, feeders got another 2 or 3 months added on to that. So that's kind of like my winter. November through March. Probably get kicked off the pasture, the ryegrass, in March. And then I got, starting in March, probably shooting for the 15th every year. Lambing season really starts. So what does that mean for me? And where do I lamb? Now, a lot of pasture problems, I think, can be solved by just using fields that nobody wants. Because there's just like a lot of people who, like, I don't know, their dad died 10 years ago and they're just like a middle-aged person with or without kids, but like nobody has interest in the land, but they just like want the country lifestyle and just kind of keep living out there. But like the land's not really, it's not being farmed. It's just kind of like maybe when they were younger they had horses or something. Anyways, there's tons of lots like this, like 50 acres here, 100 acres there, which can totally, I think, for the first few years be split up into lambing pastures, because the grass is going to grow anywhere. You're not worried about, well, you are worried about pasture quality in March and April and May, but not as much. Like if there's grass is growing, you're at least doing better. Ideally, years to come, I can either like contract someone out to like farm a field for me, maybe pay for that, they get to keep whatever the crop is, I pay for seed or something like that. And because I don't want to have to like invest in equipment to farm clover to pasture on. Like we're still trying to start the sheep operation, maybe in 20 years, but yeah. I don't know how much other people would be willing to let you lamb out on their crop in March and April. Like that could, worries about overgrazing and losing crop and all that. So, I mean, you can understock it to a point where they don't, I don't know, lots of things. Maybe that's something, a path we could go for the spring, is if people are amicable to that, lambing on their clover crop at like 3/4 to 1 ewe per acre lambed out, and then ideally end of April, first week of May, kicking them off those fields onto the other before mentioned fields. Now the whole issue with these fields, these free fields that I was mentioning before, or like cheap fields or unused fields where you're just knocking on people's doors and saying, can I use that? Is feed quality. Like, it might be fine for maintaining ewes, but like, is it good enough for lactating ewes? And that's going to be an issue. So yeah, pasture procurement issue, and then the real issue starts summer, fall. So July, everything's going to turn into sawdust. Everything's going to die. There's going to be no more feed left for sheep. So you've got two options, maybe a third option. I'd have to look into the science. I don't think the third option exists. We'll start with the third option. Leasing farmland that is not irrigated and finding a pasture mix of quote-unquote drought resistant that at least extends my grazing season. But that field will die eventually. There's just, I don't think there's any way we can go 3 months without rain and have grass. So then that brings us to option 2. 1, I don't know, I keep jumping orders because my mental lists are different. I don't even have mental lists. Lease irrigated pasture land. Maybe for 1, so I guess there's 4 options total. For 1, expensive. Won't be able to do that for quite a few years. For 2, kind of breaks your heart. I don't want to aquifer farm Like, that's kind of the fun part about sheep, is you get to go use land that's not being used for other shit. And stack up uses on land, you know, like the ryegrass fields that are all going to be somebody else's crop for a different thing, but it feeds sheep for 3 to 4 months. That's fucking sick. Sick as shit, bruh. Well, that is an option. Option 2 is I can try to hop into this vineyard thing. I need to figure out what the maths, as the Brits would say, is on the vineyard. I know you get paid to do it, but also I don't want to mow. So maybe I can just not get paid to do it and not mow, or get paid less to not mow. I just don't want to fucking mow. Like, I don't know. I landscaped for a few years. I loathed that job. It was so stupid. Why am I mowing? Why do so many people have yards? So stupid. Or why am I putting in yards later on? Oh, my body's spent. I've not been eating in a while. So all that said, damn, bruh. Don't know what to do on that, but it is an option. And the issue might be, so like, I see that as an option because like they irrigate the vines, so the grass is gonna grow around them. Issue is, they might not graze in the summer. I imagine maybe if leaves are mature, depending on the vineyard and sheep and whatnot, maybe they'll let you graze as long as the sheep aren't grazing the vines. I don't know if maybe the sheep love grape leaves. I don't know. So the issue is vineyard season, spring's out, because they will eat the buds, that's for sure. And so you got to let everything bud out. Fall's out, so you got to be out of the vineyards for enough time for food safety reasons. Summer, I don't even know if that's a thing. It's got to be a thing. So why would these vineyards pay you just to graze in the winter? And if that's the only thing that's going on, kind of kicks me off the ryegrass fields, and I'm not gonna lie, unless you're being paid to graze a vineyard, ryegrass fields sound better. Less management, more sheep, one place, versus like vineyards, you know, you're fitting together a whole bunch of people's lots, have to do more rotational grazing, versus on the ryegrass fields, because of the nature of the growing season, you don't have to rotationally graze. You just understock and set it and forget it for a couple weeks rather than having to rotate them every few days. So probably more labor intensive. And this is all for the winter stuff, right? So I don't know. But also, all of this depends on what opportunities arise. But if the summer thing exists, that could be sick as shit, bruh. I don't know why I keep saying that. That was stupid. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, another option for the summer. The last option. This one I have the most questions about. So the question, I guess, surrounding the vineyard is, what does that contract look like? Who do I approach? How common is that? Is that something people actually do? Oh man, Lucky and Warmit about to get in a fight. So then the last option, one I want the most, and probably gonna be the hardest to obtain, to make work financially, logistically, kind of being a sole proprietor for a while, is rangeland. What I'm doing right now. if I could get a forest permit, a 2-3 month forest permit, so as we get kicked out of our pasture grounds in the spring, we finish late spring, early summer on people's abandoned horse pasture or whatever, the Lima Valley, or dry farmed leased pasture that is like my home base leased pasture. Like, it can always come back, and I've got my quote-unquote drought resistance on there, right? So that by mid-July, when the forest permits open up, I can hire a trucking company, and then I'll worry about panels and getting myself up there to do what I'm doing from July, August, September, the dry months, up in Oregon. Now, the issues that we run into that, is it like a rule, or is it like a rule of the past, but like if I talk to people, I can get a permit? And the rule is like, do I need to own 40 acres? Which, oh my God, that would suck. Or could I lease 40 acres, call that my ranch, have the lease in paper, 5-10 year lease, ideally, I don't know if those exist, and be like, yeah, this is a secure arrangement, so if you kick me off the land, there's a place to dump the sheep for whatever reason, fire, drought, they don't like me. And so that's like the first question for that. Second question, do the permits even exist? Third question, if they exist, are they open? Fourth question, I've kind of found where to find some of them, but it does seem like a lot of this is just a boys club and I'm not invited. So how do I get in on these permits? Sixth question, can it get me to the end of September? Ideally a little bit into October. That'd be perfect situation for me. So yeah, to wrap up that whole question, how do we procure this pasture? And then the fall is, because ryegrass is still taking off. You gotta wait till it gets to at least 6 inches, right? And the vineyards are all closed for harvest. Everything dried out during the summer, so nothing's gonna really be greening up for a while. So where do I put my sheep in the fall? We're gonna be kind of just entering maintenance phase for the ewes. We'll be separating ewes and lambs at this point, especially if we can do the fucking permit thing. So where do we go? So we don't need feeding lactating ewes. It doesn't have to be prime quality feed. But what it does have to be is green and edible. So here's my idea. There are tons of fescue fields that get turned over every year. Am I able to build enough relationships that people are like, yeah, we're gonna fuck this shit up and later in the fall when we have time, and or when the ground kind of softens a little bit after a couple of rains, and or in the spring. So like you can just like come and graze it in the off season when typically you wouldn't want to graze shit because you would like eat all the crowns. And I don't think that'd be a huge issue as long as you don't go overboard, because the root system will still exist throughout the winter, so erosion wouldn't be too much of an issue. And if you don't overgraze it, I think the plants will kind of stick around enough to reduce that erosion. So if I could just make enough phone calls of like, yeah, we're pulling this field out. We'd already done our harvest, wheat, fescue. Especially if these people irrigate, and if I could pay the irrigation bill for the end of September, beginning of October into November until it starts raining. Just to keep it green on this like wheat or whatever that's already been harvested. It could be an option. So these are my ideas, but then the question surrounding them is just how do you get there? And also the question surrounding it is this pasture procurement idea does it have any salt or whatever the phrase is? I don't know. She better not be going to look for sheep. Bengaki! Lucky! They're like, guys, we're hungry. We're ready for lunch. We want to go take a nap. Lucky, come here. Matilda, Bengaki! Then I skipped a question in there, but honestly, this is a long video, so I don't remember what it is. But those are the big questions that haunt me every day. Yeah, imagine the first couple of years the labor will kind of be low enough for most of the year. Like if I go do something like school bus driver, and you get that midday break to go do sheep chores. You can do morning and afternoon checks before and after work. I think you can make it work. Guaranteed weekends, guaranteed holidays. Time to catch up on work. Especially because during school year, there's gotta be like a holiday like every 3 weeks. So you go and build all of your advanced fencing for that. And then you just have to mostly rotate. I don't know. I gotta go find this dog. Those are my thoughts.